Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to class this evening. I need you to help me confirm if you can hear me properly. Can every one of us hear me properly? Please just confirm for me. Okay, thank you, Naomi. So we'll continue the class today. All right, good evening. Thank you, James. We did some of things on URL last night, and it was more of talk. We almost didn't write any code, but it's good that we have that information. I was initially contemplating whether to take us those topics or not, but I think it's good that we have the information and see how browsers handle URLs and how they are being generated and what they actually mean. So today again we're going to look at another topic for information's sake. We know we are not currently doing XHTML. What we are doing is HTML. Okay. So we're just going to talk about a few things about XHTML. We're not really going to write codes on it, but we're going to see the difference between HTML and XHTML, like I tried to mention to us yesterday. And where XHTML is really required, there's no much difference between them. The difference between XHTML and HTML is that XHTML is strongly typed, like I was trying to explain. We will see what that means today. Strongly typed, the tags are, you have to close every tag, every element has to be closed. The element has to be in lower cases and all that. So we see those here. So they are both the same thing, but XHTML is just strongly typed. That's what we're talking about here. So let's move straight into what we have for today. We'll also be introduced to HTML forms. Okay, so but let's start with this for now. So XHTML is stricter, a more XML based version of HTML. So like I said, it is still HTML, but it's just a strongly typed version of HTML that's more strict, follow the rules and all that. Okay, so what is HTML? XHTML stands for Extensible Hypertext Markup Language. It is stricter, more XML based version of HTML, and it is HTML defined as XML application, okay, and it's supported by all major browsers. Okay, it's supported by all major browsers. When we start the web programming itself, we'll discover that we'll be using more of XHTML. When we start Django, using more of XHTML. When I was doing ASP.NET, I was using more of XHTML in my coding. You understand? So I would prefer to code in XHTML than coding in just HTML, as the case may be. So let's just proceed. Right. So why XHTML? XML markup language where all documents must be marked up correctly. XML is a markup language where all documents must be marked up correctly. That's, they should be well formed, even up to indentation, the structure of the document, element that has to be there, otherwise there's going to be an error. Okay, so XHTML was developed to make HTML more extensible and more flexible to work with, other data formats such as XML. In addition, browsers ignore errors in HTML pages and try to display the website even if it has some errors in the markup. So XHTML come with a much stricter error handling, which means it's not going to allow you to just, go scot-free when there's an error in your code. For example, if you start typing in HTML, if you start typing, what's it called now, any tag, and you did not put the closing tag, there's a possibility that your browser will still, display that particular code for you. We'll still be able to translate it. But for XHTML, it's going to throw an error. And I think that is the essence of programming anyway. You have to just do things the right way and know what you're doing. So most important differences from HTML. So doc type is mandatory in XHTML. But in HTML, you may not even put doc type. You may not put those tags, but it will still run. So the XMLNS attribute in HTML is mandatory. In the HTML tag is mandatory. So the HTML tag, head tag, title tag, and body tag are also mandatory. Elements must always be properly nested. Elements must always be closed. Element must always be in lowercase. Attribute names must always be in lowercase. Attribute values must always be quoted, all right? And attribute minimization is forbidden. We'll be seeing this as we go on. We'll be explaining more of that. So the doc type is mandatory. Now, an XHTML document must have an XHTML doc type declaration. The head tag, the HTML tag, the title tag, and the body tag element must also be present, okay? And all these things, they have to be present in your document structure, like the standard document structure that we create in HTML. For HTML, these elements that you're seeing on your screen right now, they have to be present. You have to have them in your HTML, the document you're working with. Okay, so here's an example of what we're talking about. You can see we have the doc type, we have the HTML, we have the head, we have the title, we have the body, and so on like that. So this is the standard structure for XHTML, the standard structure for XHTML. Please, if you have questions, please put it in the chat window for me to see. So elements must be properly nested. Element must be properly nested. So if we look at these two codes now, we see the one at the top is correct, the one below is wrong. So we have the bold, we have the italics in between. So you can see that the italics here that opened here has been closed here. So likewise, the bold also is outside. This is how to nest elements, the correct way to nest elements. This is wrong. XHTML will not even accept it at all. It's not going to run at all. Okay. Okay, we also said that elements must be closed. You must have closing tag for your elements. This paragraph element was opened here and was closed here. Same with this one on the second line. While this one was open, but not, these ones were open, but they are not closed. This will not run in XHTML. And is not even a good programming practice, okay? So empty elements must be closed. We know that we've used break tag in our HTML, but in XHTML, you must close your empty elements just like this. You just put this / before the closing angle brackets, okay? You put the /. Same applies to horizontal row. Same applies to image as well. You can see the / is always there to close the empty element. Okay. For HTML, it may fly, but for XHTML, you have to close it. So I would like us to start putting that into practice when we are coding, because it is HTML that you eventually use to start coding web coding at the end of the day. As far as I'm concerned, that's what I would love to do. So elements also must be in lower cases. When we say element, we're talking of this body tag and the p tag, paragraph tag. They must all be in lower cases. This is not going to be allowed in XHTML. Okay, it may run in your HTML, but in XHTML, it's not going to be allowed. All right, so sorry, today's class is not going to be that long. I have something I need to take care of. So we might be ending this class by 9 or hopefully before 9. I have something emergency I need to take care of. So please bear with me. But if you have questions, please let's ask questions. I'll be able to answer. So attribute name must also be in lowercase. We can see the href in lowercase at the top image, and that is what is correct. The bottom one is not correct. And we've also been encouraging ourselves, even in HTML, to always put our attribute names in lower cases, including our elements as well, all in lower cases. So we are seeing the differences between XHTML and HTML itself. So attribute values must always be quoted. At the top, you can see these double quotes here. It must always be quoted in XHTML. For HTML, it may run. You may put it like this and it will still run. But for HTML, it's not going to run at all. So attribute minimization. Now, attribute minimization talks about, for example, if you look at this image here, the one that we tagged as wrong, we can see checked here. Okay, input type, blah, 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 then we say checked. But in XHTML, you can't just say checked. Okay, you have to put it like this: checked equals to checked. Okay, for HTML, there's a default value. It means if you put checked, then it's checked. Okay, but if you want it unchecked, then you probably put unchecked there. All right, but here you have to write it in full. Checked equals checked. Disabled equals disabled. All right, so that is what we mean by attribute minimization. All right, so in XHTML, attribute minimization is not allowed, but for HTML, it can be accepted. Now, any questions so far before we move into forms? Do we have any questions so far before we move into forms? All right, so if there are no questions, let's move into forms. We are gradually getting into the interesting part of HTML, and this is where it gets more interesting. Okay, we're not going to write anything real life in HTML anyway, but we'll try to see how some of those things work and how they can be done. So an HTML form is used to collect user input. The user input is most often sent to a server for processing. So this image you're seeing is what we refer to as HTML form. Many of us have seen Google Forms. We've seen Microsoft Office forms. We've seen different forms online. You know, where you go online and start filling your form. If you want to open an email account, you fill a form. Okay, so we are trying to see in this chapter what capacity or capabilities that HTML has when it comes to creating forms and its elements. Okay. So the form element, that's how you start to create forms anyway. You create forms using the form element. So the HTML form element is used to create the HTML forms. Okay, the form element is a container for different types of input elements, such as text fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, submit buttons, etc. So those are some of the elements that can be contained or that your form can serve as a container for. Okay. So first, we're going to be considering the input element. The input element is a very, very useful element when it comes to HTML forms, because that input element has different forms. Okay, as you can see below in the table, we have the type of text, we have the type of radio, we have the type of checkbox, we have the type of submit, we have the type of button. So they are the input element, very, very useful when it comes to HTML forms. So we're going to be using some of them now to practice. So I want you to please open your Visual Studio Code and create a new folder for day 16 and simply create a file called HTML forms, or just call it forms.html. Okay, put it inside your day 16 folder. Please quickly do that because we're going to write a code now. So I have mine here and I'm going to create another form. So I'll just name this form2.html and I'll create that structure. Okay, so we're going to write this code. We're going to quickly write this code. Here we're looking at text fields. Okay, text fields are labels and then the input type being text. All right, so we're going to write this code out now. If you've created your file, please go ahead and start putting this code out. So we start inside your body element. Inside your body element is where you start typing your form. So please make sure you're coding, close it, enter. Then we type label for f name. Then we say first name and colon. So go to the next line and type in our input. What type of input are we looking at? We're looking at the input type of text. Give it an ID. And the ID here is f name. We also give it a name. It's in the name attribute. The name attributes value also is f name. And then we close the input tag like this, like the way I just closed it. All right. Then we put our break here so that the next one goes to the next line. So what I am going to do here, I'm just going to copy these two lines and paste them so that it's faster for me. Then I'll start changing these values. LName changes also to last, LName and LName. All right. So as you can see towards the preview window, you can see that we have a label first name and a text box where we can enter stuff into. All right. So that is what is it called now? Our text field that we just tested. So when you run this code, this is what you should be having. I think for me, I didn't even put breaking tags here. I have to put my break tags here as well. Depending on the design you're going for, you can help yourself. Okay. So I think I'd like to have two break tags here. Yeah, to create that. Oh, no, not there. Let me put it here to create that space. Aha. I love the way it's looking now. Okay. So if you are done, please put in the chat window that you're done. Is anybody done? While you're typing, I'm going to run this in a browser to see how it looks. So this is my form here. Pretty good. Okay, who is done here? Okay, Tosin, well done. Tosin is done. Tosin is done. Well done. Who else is done? Esther Mojo, well done. You're done. Who else? Let me have one more person. All right. Okay, I have two. Well done, guys. Well done. So let's proceed with other elements in our form. So here we can see that the form itself is not visible. It means we don't see any border or something. We just see the element inside the form. should also note that the default width for an input element is 20 characters. What they are saying here by saying 20 characters is that, let me enlarge this my thing for you. So what we are saying here is that for this input element you have here, it can contain 20 characters by default, as the length can contain 20 characters by default. So let's test that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Okay. So by default, that will be the normal text that you can take. But I think this can take more than, as you can see. All right. All right. So let's proceed with this. So the label element, now we've seen the label element in action here. All right. That's what we use to write first name and last name. All right. So we're going to talk about label element now. Esther Yola, well done. And Dada, well done as well. Okay. And I think I have one more person there. Busola, well done. Daniel, well done. All right. Let me mention everybody's name before you said I did not mention your name. That's just a joke anyway. All right, the label element. Notice the use of label element in the previous example. The label element tag defines the label for many form element. You know, and why the label is important is that that's what you use to write what the input element is meant for, or what the forms element is meant for. Okay, so take for example, here we did first name. It means in this box here, I'm supposed to type my first name. And here the label says last name. It means in this box, I'm supposed to type in my last name. So that's what label element does. Even when in any input element, your label element is the one that describes that input element. And when we say input elements are elements that users can, that collects data from users, okay, that receives input from users, like your text box, your radio button, your checkboxes, your text area elements. They are all input elements. That's what allows your user to impute a value, you know, for the computer to process. Okay, so the label element is useful for screen reader users, because the screen reader will read out aloud, okay, the label when the user focuses on that input element. The label element also helps users who have difficulty clicking on very small regions, such as the radio buttons and checkboxes, because when the user clicks, you know, the text within the label element, it toggles the radio button or the checkbox. So the 4 attributes, okay, is what we use to link up the label and that input element. So I'll explain that to you now. So look at here in this code, we have these 4. You can see this label element, and we have these 4 attributes, and is equal to f name. Just take note, f name. All right, and in the input element here of type text, we have an ID called f name, okay, and we have a name called f name as well. So what they are saying is that the 4 attributes of the label tag should be equal to the ID attribute of the input element to bind them together. So our 4 attributes here for our label is labeled is given the value f name, and our input value for the first name label is also having an ID of what? F name. So the browser knows that this particular text box belongs to this label. This particular text box here, the one below, belongs to the last name. So that is what this particular paragraph is telling us. When you start to do, when we get to checkbox and radio button, you get to understand it better. Okay, like you probably see it in action. That's the 4 attributes for label. So now we're talking about radio buttons. Like I said, we are going to also write a code. The input type radio defines a radio button. Radio button lets the user select one of the limited number of choices. Your radio button will only allow you to select one option from the list of choices that you have. So now create a new HTML file and name it radio.html. A new HTML file and name it radio.html. So I'm going to do that here very quickly. Please try and do yours as well. Radio.html. Bam. Create your structure, and that's it. Then when you are done creating your structure, please type out this code. So start typing now. Let's start typing. Form. So come to form. I'll go next. So input. What type of input are we dealing with here? We're dealing with radio. In Visual Basic and ASP.NET, we call it option button, but here is radio button. So the ID for this radio button is HTML, right? And the name is called fav_language. You will type that out yourself. Value is the text, the value of the element, HTML. Okay, and then we close the input tag. All right, so next we're going to create our label. We'll create our label for, this is the four attribute I'm talking about here. The four attributes must be the same. The value of the four attributes must be the same as the value of the ID. So I type HTML. And then I close it and I type HTML as my label. So make sure you're coding. So again, I'm just going to copy these two lines of code and paste them twice. And then I'll start changing the values. So I pasted them twice. The next one is CSS. And the value is CSS. And here is also changed to CSS. And here also, if you don't understand what I'm doing with these values I'm changing, please just go ahead and type yours out in full. Then the next one is JavaScript. And we leave the fav language as it is, and then the value also change into JavaScript. Okay, and then for the label, we change the HTML to what? JavaScript. And voila, I'm done here. Then I'll start to add my break tags. So help me move them below break. All right, so as you can see in the preview window, we have these option buttons and all that. So the usefulness of label is what we're going to see here. The option button here is so tiny. All right, it's tiny. In some cases, you may not be able to click them easily. So if you click on the text itself, which is the label, you should select the option for you. And this is possible because we have linked up the radio button and the form, and the label together. We've linked them up together here using these ID attributes that we have here, and also the four attributes we have for label. So that's what ties them together. As you can see, you can only select one of them. Okay, you can only select one of them at a time. Did I make a mistake with this JavaScript? I've made a mistake. You can see that for JavaScript, it's not clicking. When I click on the label, this radio button will not click. For others, it works. For JavaScript, it will not work because I failed to correct this one. I failed to change it into JavaScript. What's the name again? Yes, JavaScript. So JavaScript. So if you check now, you see it's working, it's working, it's working. So ensure yours is working too. All right. Okay, well done, guys. Well done, Esther. Well done, Busola. Let me have one more person. One more person. All right, let's see who's that. Yeah, Tosin, well done. Oh, Esther Ayola, well done as well. Okay, so let's move on. How we've understood how we can create our radio buttons. All right. What else is done? Paul, well done. So let's go on. So of course, this is what we saw that we've done. Okay. So checkboxes, same applies to checkboxes as well. Same way of tying your label to your checkboxes applies here as well. So create a new file and name it checkbox.html. Silas, well done. Name it checkbox.html. That's what I'm going to do here. Create a new file, checkbox.html. All right. So excuse me. Okay. All right, so create yours and then let's code this code into our own. So we started with forms as usual. When you want to create your forms, you need to start with the form element, because that's the only place where those things will show. So input, what type of input are we dealing with here? We're dealing with checkbox input. Okay, give it an ID. Okay, ID equals to vehicle 1. Vehicle 1. Name, we name it same thing as vehicle 1. And what's the value? Value here is bike, capital B. Then go ahead and close that element. Then we come up with label, our friendly label, the 4 attributes here. Name it the same ID you gave to the one above, to the inputs. So you have vehicle 1. I'll close that, then we write the text in there. I have a bike. Okay, so what I'm going to do as usual is copy these 2 lines of code and I'll paste them. And then I have to start changing the values. So the second one, the ID is going to be vehicle 2, name vehicle 2, but I'm going to change the value to car. All right. So here also it should be I have a car. And the 4 will be directed to okay, block is off. 2. Okay, I hope I've done everything I need there. All right, if I've not, I believe I know. So the third one, vehicle 3 for the ID, vehicle 3 for the name, and boat. Okay, 4 value will be vehicle 3, and it will be I have a boat. Okay, now as usual, I always forget to put my break tags. Break. All right, so I have all 3 aligned well, properly aligned. So I'll save and work. So if you're done, please put it in the chat window. Sola, well done. That was fast. Well done. Put it in the chat window. and run your code and test. You can see as I click on the label, okay, now there's a problem here. What did I do? Vehicle ID, cell vehicle 2. Okay, it's not working. All right. So for checkbox, you can actually check more than one option, but for radio button is just one option. Yes, boxes can be ticked. Yep. Well done, Paul. All right. Who's done? Who's done again? So let's move on. Let's move on. I hope we are getting the gist. Yeah. Please give me a moment, please. All right, well done, Tosin. So let's move on. Okay, because this is what we expected to see or have. Go to the next one, submit button. Well done, Silas. Well done, Esther Mojowo. We say nothing is showing. That's well done. Paul Ogulano said nothing is showing in your code. I don't understand. Please review your code properly. Something must be showing. It can't be that nothing is showing. Review your code. I'm sure something must be showing. Review your code. Ensure that you have your forms, your form tag. Okay, every other thing here must be inside the form tag. Ensure that that is done. All right. So here we'll be looking at submit button. Okay, looking at submit button now. The submit button, of course, is used to submit information, send information to the server. Somebody is saying checkbox can work for select all that applies. Of course, that's what that's it, because you can select more than one option. Okay, so quickly create another file and name it submit.html. Submit.html. Okay. So we create a structure right there. Okay, well done, Esther Yola. Well done, well done, well done. So let's write this code that we have on the screen now. Please make sure you are coding form. So we start with the form tag. Always ensure you start with the form tag. And in this our form, for this one, we have an attribute called action. Attribute called action, and the action is leading to action underscore page.php. Okay, so we continue to code a form. Start with label. For attributes equals to fname. Close our label and type in first name. Okay. A break tag comes in there. So right here, we're going to type in input again. This time around, our input is of type text. Okay. And we have an ID. ID is fname. We have a name. The name also is fname. Now we have a value for it. Value is John. Because we'll close our tag, add a line break in there. So as usual, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy the first two rows. These two rows or line of code. Now paste it once. Somewhere I'm going to change this to hell name. Now change this to last. Okay, change this to L name. Change this to L name. And I'll change this to do. I hope you are typing. If you are done, you can put it in the chat window. And I'll pick it from there. So after that, we will then create, let me double my break tags to make this thing look very presentable. Okay, cool. So here also I'm going to add one more break tag. And now it's time to type our submit button. Our submit button is also an input element, okay, but of type submit. Okay, and the value is submit. That's what will appear on the text, on the button rather. We submit, and we close our element. Save our work. So please check yours. Ensure you write the right thing. And let me know when you're done. Busola, well done. So if you run your code now and you click on the button, it's going to give you an error. The error does not mean your code is not okay. What it's saying is that we are not running a web server yet. These are just static pages that are not actually doing anything. But what we are trying to do is how to design this. So if I click on submit now, it's going to do this because it cannot see the action underscore file.php file. And if you look at this URL here, you can see a question mark, and we have our f name equals to John and our last name equals to Doe here. That's how the button sends that data to the server, and that's the way it sends it to the server. All right. Okay. Who else is done? I've only seen Busola done here. So who else is done? Okay, Esther Mojo, well done. Well done. Tosin, well done. Dayat, well done. Okay, so let's proceed. Let's continue. We are rounding up very soon. Okay. Well done, Paul. And also well done, Esther Ayola. The name attribute for input elements. So notice that each field has name attribute. Okay. All the input element we've been creating, they have the name attributes. So the name attribute, if it's not omitted, the value of the input field will not be sent at all. So the name attribute is what the server receives. The value of the name attribute is what the server receives and know what to do with it. So when we clicked on the submit button, like I showed us here, if this text box does not have a name or this doesn't have a name, it won't be able to send it to the browser. So we probably won't have it here at all. All right. So the name attribute is always good that you have it for your input elements. Okay. And the value, of course, is going to be whatever is inside the text box. The reason why we are coding this value in here is because we're not really doing web programming. So web programming is going to then help you to whatever you enter inside to pick it up and sends it out. So if I choose not to even add, let me do something now. Let's try something. Okay, just so that we know. So if I change this Doe to Smith, I am the one that entered that by myself, and I click on submit. You can see that it's giving me Smith here. My last name is equal to Smith. Okay, so those are things that can happen. if we're running a web server currently, we know what to do with that. But by the time we get to Django, these are the things we'll be doing in Django. All right. So always have your name attributes there. Always have it there. Always make sure that you have your name attribute for your input values. Okay. So, but let's try and see if we remove name attribute from, let's say we remove it from the first one, which is John. Let's remove name attribute there, and then we save our work. I'll open the browser and go back, and then I'll refresh this. Okay, let's click submit again. So as you can see, the only name that the server could send is what? The last name, which equals to Doe. So don't at any point in time fail to add that name attribute if you want it to be sent across to the web server. Very important. It's very, very important. Okay. All right, so let's see what else we can do. Okay, I think this would be a good place to stop today. We'll start the next chapter tomorrow, hopefully. Tomorrow's class it's 50-50, but I'll let you know if the class is going to hold because I'll be out of Lagos. Remember I told you we're going to have a break, but I want to see if I'll be able to take tomorrow's class. What I'm going for is going to start on Sunday, but I'll see if I can take tomorrow's class. I'm going to try my best possible to ensure that I can take tomorrow's class so that I can then use all this that we're learning to give us assignments for the week. Okay. So tomorrow, by God's grace, we'll be meeting. By the grace of God, we'll be meeting by God's grace. So, but after tomorrow, it's going to be till the following week. But of course, we'll be communicating on Telegram and other platforms that we use to communicate. You can use that time to do some practice. You can reach out to me if there's any issue. The only problem is I won't be able to prepare the slides while I'm on the program I'm going for. Okay, so please do bear with me, and I believe I'll make it up to you guys when class resumes again after tomorrow. So please bear with me. I pray that God will keep us beyond, and we'll see again by the grace of God. So any question from anybody? Any question from anybody? Let's see. Okay. Thank you, Esther, for your amen. Do you have any question so far? So just tomorrow we'll meet by the grace of God. We'll be looking at other things, the form attributes, where we take each of those attributes one after the other, looking at action attributes, those are things we'll be looking at, target attributes and all that. We're looking at those tomorrow by God's grace. Okay, so thank you guys for today. I'm sorry that today's class is a bit short. Please bear with me. I need to quickly run out now. Okay, so please bear with me. We'll see you again tomorrow by the grace of God. Thank you so much, everyone. Let me call out your names. I love to call out everybody's names. So I know that I see you. I can see you, Busola. Thank you for coming to class. Daniel, thank you for coming to class. Esther A, thank you for coming to class. Esther O, thank you for coming to class. Diet, thank you for coming to class. James, thank you for coming to class. Matthew, where have you been? Thank you for coming to class. Naomi, thank you for coming to class. Paul, thank you for coming to class. Tosin, I see you. Thank you. Grace, I see you. Thank you for coming to class. And Bisola, well done. Thank you for coming to class. Thank you, everyone. Please keep practicing and keep practicing, and let's see what develops. Okay, so I pray for you. God will bless you with greater wisdom in this course in Jesus' name. You will not just learn it and put it in your pocket. You shall use it to make money by the grace of God in Jesus' name. So God bless you guys, and I'll see you again tomorrow by God's grace. Hopefully there's good network where I'm going to, because I'm going to one bush So I'm hoping that there will be good network by the grace of God. All right, see you guys tomorrow and have a great night. Bye-bye. Don't forget to mark your register. It's up already, so please ensure you mark it. Good night.